Hello everybody, Hassan here from Galaxy Invest. Just a reminder, this is not financial advice. Please do your own research. So today, guys, I wanted to dive deep into this paper that was recently published on CRISPR Journal. But before we dive into the paper, guys, please do like this video. Do subscribe. Just below this video, guys, just smash that like button, subscribe. And a lot of you watch this video have not subscribed yet. I think it really does help the channel and the community, guys. Don't forget the mission of this channel, guys, is to raise awareness of this technology, right? Whether that's in gene editing or even in genomics in general. These technologies in this space are going to revolutionize this world. And again, this is free information. We're giving this out for free. And the best thing we can do is really raise our community, share that information, share the videos that we publish in this video, and ultimately leave a feedback or a comment in the discussion below of each video, guys. It really helps stimulate the discussion. So please, guys, if you guys could like, subscribe, and even comment, that would really help the community. So we'll dive into this paper. Let me just reduce my face here so that you guys can see the paper a little bit more. So we'll leave it something like this. So what this paper is about, guys, this paper was published by a professor in Berkeley, and this is from Dr. Yurnov. And he basically published a paper basically talking about CRISPR, Cas9, really the history behind this technology, where it stands currently, and hopefully a statement where he talks about the outlook of not just this technology, but really this space in general, right? Everything to do with gene editing, genomics in general, really. And he makes a lot of mentions about sickle cell disease, beta thalassemia, and there are some mentions about some of these companies involved in this space. So we'll take a look at this paper, guys. I highlighted a few points that I wanted to go over. So, for example, here in the abstract, he talks about sense of urgency, right? We'll take a look at this paper, and I think we'll have a great conclusion from where this author stands when he talks about sense of urgency. We've iterated in the past, guys, that there is a sense of urgency to tackle these diseases because they are taking many lives away every single day, not just North America, not just in developed nations, but around the world in less developed nations, specifically in regions such as Africa. You have many regions there with not many resources to treat some of these diseases. I think this is where the sense of urgency is, right? Yes, we want to make sure that we don't skip any safety protocols for any of these potential drugs through the CRISPR technology, Cas9. Yes, we don't want to skip those steps. Yes, we want to go through proper regulations because we don't want to introduce any sort of side effects that can introduce major delays in this space. But at the same time, guys, we are running against this sense of urgency, right? Where there are many lives being lost, many families are affected, many communities could do much better if many of these diseases were tackled. So obviously here he talks about general achievements of in 2020 with CRISPR. Obviously the two Nobel Prize winners, Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier, that we mentioned in the past. Guys, there's a book in the description below, the book on Jennifer Doudna by Isaac Walterson. So big book, legendary author. Highly recommend you guys to read it. It is definitely interesting. So as we go through this paper, guys, in table one here, I think this is the most important really uh, figure, in my opinion, of this paper, because it really gives you a great outlook as to where this technology stands as of today with all the end application received by the US FDA, right? And you can clearly see that Vertex and CRISPR Therapeutics partnerships is leading the way through all these other companies in this space. There's Intellia, you see there's Editas, there's even Sangamo Therapeutics that I did not cover in this channel. I'll take some time to look into this company. I've heard about it, but I haven't really researched into it. But just know this is how the space looks like, guys. And you can clearly see that there's 10 patients here in total with sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia from this partnership that I highlighted. And besides that, there's there's not much in terms of clinical trials, guys. And this is going to be important as we go through the paper here. And over here, there's a mention here about how the average lifespan just in America alone, it's about 45 years old for the hundred thousands of Americans that have sickle cell disease, and more specifically in regions in Africa such as Nigeria. We're looking at the lifespan of 5 years, guys. 5 years. Very big problem, guys. This is what we talk about sense of urgency, right? I keep repeating this word because yes, that technology is interesting. Yes, it is quote unquote fancy for some of the outsiders. Yeah, it looks cool, it looks nice. Uh, but there is a sense of urgency about how and what this technology can do, right? We've repeated in the past where many of these big companies, right, in the technology space, we look at Apple, even Tesla, right, even Microsoft, we're looking at all these companies. They're doing great things, right? They're delivering great products. Many of them are doing a big favor to many communities, including Tesla, obviously with the green their green energy move there. But the idea behind it is that none of these companies are really tackling the big elephant in the room, which is how can we use technology to cure diseases, to eliminate world hunger? And the reality of the things is that CRISPR-Cas9 does introduce a solution to those problems, right? Those social problems can be resolved with a technology like Cas9. However, like we go back to the table one, this is where we stand today. This is not the end of all, right? There's not just these companies that can tackle this huge mission that I just mentioned, right? Eliminating all diseases and eliminating world hunger. That is a big goal, guys. That is not just one or two companies. Many companies have to take part of this. There's going to be many communities that are going to want to participate. We're going to see governments involved. We need governments involved. We need the people to be involved. And ultimately, we want investors to be involved, right? And this is what we'll talk about here in this paper here. I did want to mention before I jump into the challenges and what it really means about this space is that I think a lot of people forget that this has been many decades, right? So yes, in 2021, this is where we stand. You guys saw table one, you guys saw these companies, but all those decades that came before it, right? 70 years of effort, guys, developing cell therapy, gene therapy, and ultimately genome editing, right? Without the quote unquote legacy technologies, there was no way to come to where we are today, right? So we really have to appreciate this long process that we've been through, whole generations, right? We've been working on sort of these types of technologies for years and years, right? We talked about the war on cancers, right? And this is what we are at right now, right? This is where we are at this point in 2021, the war on cancers. This is what Cas9, CRISPR can lead us to begin, right? And this war is going to take enormous time, guys. This is not just a 1, 2, 3, 4 years solution. We're talking about decades, right? So just keep that in mind, guys, when you talk about timelines, when you look into these types of papers, you can see those hidden gems, and you saw there's 70 year of work there. So you really have to appreciate how far we've come, right? And here there's a great description about this person called Victoria Gray, who was the first person to really be injected with Cas9 and obviously was cured with sickle cell disease. So that was very big in terms of scientific literature. So this is where I wanted to really put as much time as we could in this paper, guys. And the author here clearly says that for all 100,000 Americans, if we are based on table one, which we saw previously, we would never be able to cure all 100,000 Americans if we only refer to table one. right? So you guys got to think about this, guys. We will not be able to solve hundred thousands of Americans that have sickle cell disease alone. We're just talking about one set of disease, guys. We won't be able to eradicate that disease just in America alone. Forget about other regions like Africa and so on. Just in America, with the way it stands. And I know that the author here lays down three valid points, right? He talks about logistics, talks about how the clinical processes, how even if you have these massive factories, right, there's a sort of limitation you can have in terms of plants, in terms of manufactories, of products to be manufactured. But the most important part I want to mention here is the financial part of things. And I'm not entirely convinced about this reason here. They talk about how the treatment will cost more than $2 million per patient. And they use the Bluebird bio as an example. I'm not entirely sure about this. This statement here, the third reason, if you guys have a better understanding than I do, please let me know in the comments. But I don't really agree with that statement. I think there's not even a resource here stated. I'm a little bit puzzled as to how this reason could really justify why 100,000 Americans could not be cured. I'm sure there was a reason for the author here to really put it. I mean, he's done his calculations, but what are the resources? What are what is he really saying in terms of 2 million per patient, and why is Bluebird our representation to other companies in this space? I just find that to be um, a little bit confusing on my end, but it is what it is. So what does this mean, right? What are these challenges, right? We talk about logistics, we talk about, clinical reasons and even financials. What are, I think as an investor, right, you read this paper and maybe the first thing you say is like, well, this problem is big, right? And it is big, right? Because we're only talking about 100,000 Americans with sickle cell disease. We're not talking about the other diseases, guys. And again, the author is just referencing to table one, which is all the end applications through the US FDA. So it's pretty clear by now that what the author is really suggesting here, and this is what I've highlighted here throughout the end of this paper, is that we don't just have to wait for these companies, right? There are other companies that have to be introduced to the market. There's other technologies that have to be introduced in the market. And this is what Beam Therapeutics is doing, for example. I think as an investor, you got to look at the space and be very bullish about, hey, this, we're this company is CRISPR Therapeutics and Vertex, their partnership is really tackling with CTX001, sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia. However, as this research paper just sort of demonstrated, even not just CRISPR therapies and Vertex, but the other companies who have filed for IND application would not be able to eradicate all the cases just in US alone, guys. So this is where you have to think about this for a second, and we're talking about one specific set of disease in one specific nation. Now, obviously, US is a big country. I'm not understating that. But the reality of the things is you have many of these types of diseases that are spreading around many of the nations around the world, right? We're talking about Africa, Asia, South America. There's many countries there that are in dire need for many communities that have these types of diseases throughout many of their patients. And this again, it affects families. You have a reduced lifespan. Um, you have a big social problem, guys. So the I think as an investor, you got to look at this, guys, and sort of you can't just be more bullish than this, right? Just think about the total addressable market, right? Clearly, the author here has stated that we cannot solve sickle cell disease in America alone with the companies that have filed for an application to tackle sickle cell disease. What does it say about other diseases? What does it say about other companies entering the market? What does it say ultimately about the total addressable market? And this is what I want you guys to think about, right? And one really quick note, guys, I just forgot to mention here. Uh, just put this here. Now, yeah, so one quick note, guys, one quick note is that the author here talks about how it will take an additional 18 months, right? And he's basically talking the worst case, you can only have 15 patients, right? But at a good, you could have around 45 other subjects to be enrolled in the next phase of the, uh, sorry, in the current phase, but in the next, in the next set of tests. And they're talking about how this could take ultimately 5 years, guys. 5 years. This is what the author said. Now, take this as a grain of salt, guys. Take this as a grain of salt because I and many investors in this space do not believe it will take 5 years. We believe that by 2022, the FDA will potentially approve CTX001 and CRISPR Therapeutics and Vertex are going to mass market. And again, we don't have any sort of inside information. All this information is public. But as an investor, you got to think about this, right? We know that Vertex and CRISPR Therapeutics have been in discussions with the FDA and regulators to really reduce those delays, reduce those costs. And we know that CRISPR Therapeutics hired a commercial officer just under 2 months ago. And we also know, as a few days ago, that Vertex and CRISPR Therapeutics have revised their partnership, and CRISPR Therapeutics is getting up to $1.1 billion in cash, 900 million upfront, and 200 million if the FDA approves the drug in CTX001. You don't make those types of changes, guys, if you're 5 years away. You just don't. Like you like I again, I don't know. I'm not in that business. I obviously am not part of those discussions. I'm not part of those employees in any of these companies. But if you just heard the arguments that I've laid down, this is why we do not believe we are 5 years away. But look, it is what it is. That's what the author here mentioned. And what is important here, he said, also it is important, he said that we are shifted by at least a year because the ends were only reviewed in 2020 compared to the other biotech companies, right? And CRISPR Therapeutics and Vertex. So keep that in mind, guys. Keep that in mind. This is just information, guys. You don't have to take this information and run away with it and uh, just depend on this type of information. Again, what I really found interesting in this paper is that these three reasons that the author believe why just sickle cell disease alone cannot be treated with some of these companies we looked at in table 1 leads me to be very bullish, guys, about this space in gene editing, the space in genomics, all these companies, guys. There will be many winners, right? We're going to see many governments involved, many communities involved. We're going to see citizens involved. We're going to see the newer generations that are really uh, tired of this whole facade that we have against cancers, right? We talked about cancer, we talked about diseases, but we haven't had a solid solution that has mass scaled at a low cost. And to me, CRISPR Cas9 and some of these companies like CRISPR Therapeutics, Antilia, Editas, even Beam Therapeutics, these companies are going to introduce this revolution, guys. We are going to tackle this big social problems, and this is going to take years. And hopefully you guys found some value here in this video, guys. Again, I will link the paper in the description. I really hope you guys go over this paper. It's an interesting paper. The professor here has laid great arguments, a great historical background on Cas9. It's a great outlook on it. The challenges are very interesting. Let me know what you guys think about this paper in the comments. Please do like this video, guys. Please do subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you want my videos to get to you faster. And please share it with your friends and family and other investors The goal here is to raise awareness of this space. So I'll leave you guys like this. Hopefully you guys appreciated this video, and we'll see each other's in the next video. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Thank you.